Cricket media used to be pretty simple. Find your favourite newspaper, head to Cricket Info, and maybe a blog you like. Now just finding the best stories and writing is a huge challenge. You already have a job. You just want to read about cricket. Well, that is what the best of cricket is currently doing. They go out daily to find the newest cricket coverage and the best stories from any publication in the world. And when they can't discover what they want, they also hire some of the best writers to produce their own great stories. You can get the best of cricket via their website or on WhatsApp. They find cricket's best stories and give them to you every day. Hello everyone, welcome to Morning Glory. We have what I thought was going to be a fairly demure morning, and it's gone a little bit more chaotic. It's not a morning, of course. I know a lot of people get very upset about this. It's actually the afternoon session. It's whatever you want it to be, baby. But fascinating start to the day. I thought Australia bowled too short for a long period of time. I thought when they were a little bit fuller, there was certainly a lot in the wicket. There was some seam movement from back of a length as well, but it just seemed to be a little bit slow and a little bit tennis ball-y, but not in a good way, if that makes sense. So India got themselves into a really good position, and then suddenly it all fell apart right at the end. So fascinating play. Generally, with the pink ball, the middle session is the best one, and we are also expecting the ball to get soft fairly soon. So let's see how we go. But on the Morning Glory, we'll take some of your questions, and we'll go through. We'll go through. Just worth mentioning too, our new sponsor, Best of Cricket. If you haven't been across there, yeah, it's really good. I've been using it almost since it existed, I suppose. It's very well professionally put together. You've got sort of the news at the top. So if there's a test match on, like there's a lot of stuff in there about the Sri Lanka South African test match at the moment. You can go down further for everything else. So if you do get a chance, I mean, everyone should subscribe to it. You can get it on WhatsApp as well. But let's see some of the questions. Keshav going up with the big one. Okay. If it weren't for that fateful day, what kind of Australia career would Phil Hughes have had? I mean, it's the second part of your question is really hard because you're talking about how he would have handled the wobble ball and everything else. And that is something that we just don't know, of course. I think he would have gone on to make a lot of runs for Australia. There was a lot of talk about his technique. I've always thought it was a little bit nonsensical. He was probably one of the first players that I thought to myself, because I think when I was younger, I was very fascinated with techniques. And there are still, like, you look at someone like Zach Crawley, there are still issues with techniques that can cause massive problems. But if you have a shit ton of runs behind you, your technique at a certain point has already worked for you. And it's how you continue to adapt that, change it, and everything else. That's what we don't know about Phil Hughes, sadly, because we know there was a period where the whole thing with the short ball, I didn't think was ever that big a deal. I just think he went out a couple of times in a row to it, and people over-indexed it. But there was another period where he was getting caught at second slip quite a lot and sort of pushing the ball. I thought that was his bigger issue, and I was interested to see how he was going to come back from that, and unfortunately we never saw it. So we never saw him anywhere near his peak. He was a fascinating player to watch. Technically, I think I once called him the Don Bradman of tail enders because he had a technique that didn't look right. I was very invested in him because I saw him play at a very young age. I was at some of the first Shield games. If you go back on my old Victorian cricket blog, which I don't think exists anymore, but I think if you would have gone back there, like I was talking about him very early on. Yeah, I think he would have gone on to have a good career. You're kidding me, aren't you? Oh my God! Get off the computer! Oh my God! I don't even know if I'm still live. Oh my God! Sorry to everyone. There's probably like a whole world of people out there, and I don't know if I am live or not. Great. Really helpful. All right, I'd like to apologize to everyone there for the second time on the Morning Glory for this stupid cat to walk across the laptop. Luckily, he doesn't do it too much on my desk when I'm upstairs, but apparently the minute I'm doing something here, he's all over it. So apologies there. The whole thing just went blank on me, and I was probably still live, but I couldn't see if anything was working, so had to reset it anyway. All right. Yeah, so feel free to get your questions in. That's kind of how the Morning Glory works. I don't have a lot started up. Obviously, we're only one session into the day, so if you do have any questions, feel free to get them in. Kaya says, Jaiswal got a good one from start first up. Mikhail and Kohli just didn't commit to what were regulation deliveries. Loss of focus for Gill, got him in a nothing ball. Needlessly collapsed. Honestly, I don't think Australia bowled particularly well. And so I think when they started to bowl a little bit better, they caused a little bit more issues for India. Needlessly collapsed. You could say that about most times. I think they did really well to get to whatever they were, 80 for one at one stage. So I thought they batted well. I thought they handled the conditions well, and Australia wasn't bowling perfectly. Australia started to bowl a little bit better after that, and then they got the wickets, was probably more likely. The Gill one, I would say, is probably a lot more to do with the fact that he just hadn't been facing for a long time. And it might seem silly, but that's kind of how those things work. It's it's a big skill of cricket, but sometimes if you haven't, and he got a half volley, and he missed it. These things happen. I feel like Australia is not real. Well, there is a conspiracy theory that's probably made by Americans, because Americans are weird, but that says Australia is not real. So, genius, you might be onto something. Simon said, head looks the most comfy against Bumrah. Mindset? No, not really. I think it's probably just more to do. I mean, does he? I had a feeling that he had a poor record against him altogether. I could be wrong. But yeah, no, it's probably more to do with technical stuff. It might be more to do with form. I heard Ricky Ponting this week say that if I faced Bumrah, I would be trying to score off him, and I wouldn't be thinking about the bowler. And I kind of thought about that, and I was like, I get it, and I'm sure that is what he would have done. Like, I'm not saying he's wrong, but the whole idea of like taking the bowler out of it and pretending that bowler doesn't exist, like, how does that actually work? Like, Bumrah is a unique challenge that is different to everyone else. I think the idea of pretending that is not the case and that you don't need to change your batting seemed very odd to me. So yeah, I think, look, I'm just having a look now at the international record. Where are we here? So he's averages 22 against Bumrah head. So no, not if it's a mindset, it's not a good one. Why Ashwin over Jadeja and Sundar for this test? I think now they feel a little bit more confident about Nitish Reddy. Yeah, I think they feel a little bit more confident at the moment in the batting order, and so that allows them to think. That allows them to get into a kind of a mind frame, right, of like, okay, well, Ashwin can be a number 8, so there's no issue with him batting at number 8, and then you can back them on that. So that I think that makes sense. It's possible that the pink ball is better in Ashwin's hand than everyone else. It might feel more confident and might feel more comfortable in his fingers. So it might be an element of that as well. Also, he's the world's best spinner. Would probably be the other reason I would probably be looking at Ashwin over the other two. Cricket Form says, would it be India's best interest, just like the first set, to get as many in the next session and bowl with the pink ball under lights? No, it's India's best plan would be to score 500 runs, right? Like, I think we can overcomplicate this. Generally, the ball moves more under lights. I think we have more than enough Hawkeye data that sort of proves that now. I think that's with the pink ball, but I think it's also with the brand new white ball under lights. that we certainly get that situation. However, there's also other days when it skids on, right? And you want as many runs as possible. What happens if they do that and they drop a couple of catches, or they don't get the LBWs, or they get wickets off no balls or whatever, and then what? You've got 200 runs in the bank instead of 350. I just don't think that's a good tactic, realistically. KL and Gill played very well, but Australia turned around the session in the last 15 minutes. Yeah, it was a huge comeback from them. I think Cummins is still struggling with his length, although I thought he bowled a lot better than Perth. Stark with the pink ball is a completely different bowler, and I'm sure we'll probably be doing a feature on that again today at the end of the day's play. And Boland bowled really well. I thought he bowled well, but maybe still just a fraction too short. And eventually that didn't matter, and it seemed to come across. It seemed to work quite well for them. But for a long period of time, I just felt they gave India too many chances to get set. There was clearly something on that surface the whole way through. I think there was any problem there. Chitra says, if Cummins doesn't get back in a rhythm, will he drop himself? I think he looked in rhythm today. I don't think he's completely got his length back at the moment. Cronk says, the start get aroused by the pink ball. It just reacts differently in his hands, right? Like, he's always been a better white ball bowler than a red ball bowler. The pink ball is a combination between the two. So I think it swings in a way that he's more comfortable with. You probably only need to get the seam a little bit right and it could swing, for instance. Whereas with a red ball, you almost have to get it perfect. That helps someone who isn't particularly good with that. I think whatever it may be about the way it feels in his hand works, but it also reacts better for him the same way that a white ball does. And then the reason why he continues to be a good bowler over a period of time is because the white ball is goes soft and stops moving quite quickly, whereas the extra lacquer on the pink ball and the fact that they're a little bit harder and stronger means that he could stay in the game a lot longer. Aniket says, what do you make of the pitch? Looks fairly easy to bat on, except the sudden frenzy India found themselves in. I don't think it was easy to bat on. I think Australia just bowled the wrong length, really. I thought when they were very full early on, I thought they could cause lots of problems. They were just a little bit short, maybe a little bit wide. And that could have been a tactic, of course, to those two players. But for me, I just thought they were a little bit short and a little bit wide. When they've got the ball in the right area consistently, they've been fine. If you have a look at, there's about 5 or 6 balls that Gill hit off the middle of his bat. But if you go back, especially, I think it was off ball, and there might have been a couple of Cummins as well, they were jagging a long way. So I don't think it's an easy pitch to bat on or anything from that point of view. This is a 400 bat first wicket. I don't think it is, no. I mean, if when you see the amount of seam movement on some of those deliveries, it's not a 400 wicket, right? Is it good bowling, the pitch conditions, poor batting, or all the above? I think it was poor bowling for a long time, and then they probably brought it back a little bit and got better. So yeah, I think there was certainly an element of that to change. Drew says, green deck with black soil base. Yeah, it's not. This isn't India. You don't need to worry about the soil base or anything like that. From that point of view, these are drop-in pitches, so they're slightly different, Drew. They put more grass on them in part because the problem with the drop-in pitches is that they are a little bit tennis ball bouncy and they get a little bit flat. So part of the reason we've seen more grass on the wicket in Adelaide and Melbourne is just because it actually makes the cricket a little bit more entertaining. And so we saw that. So there's a big part of it. They don't really fall apart and break up anymore because they're completely different, situation from that. Harsh says, did India lose too many wickets? Yes, any wickets are too many wickets. Oren says, good morning. Have you managed to catch up with the Brook innings? No, I didn't. I didn't have a look. I mean, it looks more incredible now that we've had a situation where New Zealand collapsed at the end of the day. So I watched it a little bit. I had New Zealand on the second screen for a little while there, but I kind of missed the collapse actually. But yes, I think it's worth saying that the Brook innings now looks a lot better than it probably even did at the time. I saw some of the highlights. That shot over cover is ridiculous. Sustainable 55 average? No. I mean, I think he's a very good player. I don't think he's going to average over 55 in his Test career. Someone says, I heard Greg Chappell say that committing to the front foot is the worst thing a batter can do. I think Virat looks like he's overcommitted to the front foot, making it hard to leave the ball on length. I kind of feel like he's always batted that way somehow. I just don't think he's picking the ball up as well as he used to. I see here someone said, what's your cat's name? My cat's name is Rodan. Mothra is also around somewhere, but I don't know where she is. She's a little bit better at just not ruining the recordings, isn't she, buddy? Whereas you, tiny shit house. Actually says, a lot has been made of the positive record batting first, but given that involved high first inning averages, is it maybe not as relevant for this game? Cheers for everything you do. Thank you for the lovely super chat. I haven't looked as much at the first innings records on this wicket. It does feel to me, for whatever reason, in Adelaide over the last couple of years in the day-night games, there has been an ability to get some runs early on at times, which has disappeared. I'm not sure, how much I would look into that. One thing I would say about this wicket is I think it has less grass on it than some of the other wickets we've seen. They're starting to trust their surface a little bit more than they perhaps have over the last little while. So I think there's certainly an element of that coming in and everything else. Mohit says, I want you to decode why Boland is difficult to play. So if you go back to the World Test Championship, we did a whole video on it. He basically falls away a little bit at delivery. And so his balls all angle back into you. He does that at a good pace, on a good line, and a good length. He's very metronomic with that. So he's always keeping your stumps in play, and he makes you feel like the ball's coming back into you. But because of his ability to now bowl the wobble ball, he can also move the ball away. So it feels like the angle's coming in, and it goes away, and he gets a lot of extra seam movement. Like his wobble ball can, like if you watch today, I think Cummins jagged one away early on, but most of the excessive seam movement has probably come from Boland, that's the big difference when it comes to Boland, I think, is just that ability. But a lot of it is to do with the angle and moving everything back in and everything else. So yeah, I have done it. Mohit, I just said, don't put the same messages in like 100 times, mate. Like, I saw the first one that came up with this question anyway, and I answered it. It's just annoying for everyone else in the chat if you do that. And if I see you do that consistently, I just won't answer your question, even if it's a good one. Actually, it says, feels like Stark bowled a little better in Perth and got his wickets here. Look, I think there's just an element that the ball comes, the ball just does more for him with the pink ball. I wouldn't have said he bowled poorly today, but I think you're right. I thought he did bowl pretty well in Perth and maybe didn't quite get the most of it. Does Boland have the best control of the wobble ball right now? No, I mean, I think lots of people do. I mean, the wobble ball is actually not that hard to control. I think what Boland does more than anyone else is because he hits the wicket so hard, he's quite a strong guy. I think he gets the exaggerated seam movement more than anyone else. Most people can control the wobble ball. That's not really that hard. It's kind of everything else. What else have we got? I think this is a really interesting one from Romy. What do you think is a good first innings score on this deck? When Australia were bowling poorly, I did think that 280 was kind of where you should be looking, which is quite interesting because, of course, I think everyone else is like, oh, India have collapsed and everything. But 280 is probably what I thought, even in that period where, so the draw, I think, was 20s on the market, and it came down to 7s. So people really started to read something into this wicket that I just didn't think was there at all, if we're being honest. So yeah, but what the ideal score is, I don't know, because you can't make any guesses on a pink ball game until you've seen them bowl with the softer ball. So now they're going to bowl at the softer ball with 4 wickets already in hand, but it looks like they've got another 10, 15 overs of this ball being hard. So it's not as if it's about to come, it's about to fall apart anytime soon. Like, I do think there is certainly a big change from that. Cricket Forbes says, does the bowler's action aid how much the ball wobbles? Boland and Atkinson seem to have good control over it. No. Well, it's less to do with your action. It's more to do with your wrist control. So if you have the ability to keep your wrist in the right area, it's a bit like swing bowling. You're going to get the ball to wobble a bit more. But that isn't what gives you the extra seam thing. I think what you're seeing there is probably Boland and Atkinson, I think, hit the pitch particularly hard. And I think if you're hitting the pitch very hard, then you know, in general, whether you're bowling traditional seam or wobble ball, you're going to get the balls that jag a little bit more violently. I think if that's the case. What else do we have here? Does that falling away aspect make bowling similar to a left-hander coming around the wicket? No, I think it probably makes him more like Colin Croft. Bumrah has it as well. I'm trying to think if there's someone else I'm missing here as well. What it does is it creates almost a middle ground action, right? So a traditional right armer is going to be coming sort of straight at you. Left arm is going to be coming quite diagonally at you. And so that sort of falling away action, or whatever you would call it, Colin Croft type action, means that the ball is always constantly coming back on you. But it's not like a left armer coming around the wicket. It's a lot less than that. So it's kind of in the middle. What I'm interested in is, now that we have Bumrah and Boland, and there's others as well, I can't think of off the top of my head. There's a few others. There's a lot of people doing it, and since the wobble balls come around, we've seen a lot fewer bowlers come close to the stumps. So even traditional right-arm bowlers now come a little bit wider. So how long does that say remain an advantage when everyone starts to do it, right? Crunk says, Paul Jadeja is probably the best player in the world, yet left out of the side. Yeah, I don't know if he's currently the best player in the world, but yes, I mean, I've said before that he's the first person you pick to give your in your side to give you incredible balance. Look, I think it shows you the flexibility that India have with their lineups, and also, you know, he is not as perfectly suited to all conditions, which is the one issue that you would have with him. But if Ashwin doesn't exist, I suppose you would have to say, if Washington doesn't exist, he's automatic. That's the depth that they also have, right? I also like that they're using it. I think in the past, because cricket has this huge problem, because we don't have a bench, right? We over index on selection issues, and it's like, yeah, look, selection issues play a part, but generally you don't lose too many games because of selection issues. Like the 8 automatic selections in any game are going to be the reason that you're going to win or lose most of your games anyway, right? So we over-index on those, and I think that there was a time when India were a little bit more flexible with their selections. Perhaps was it early in Virat's career, and every time it didn't work, there was this huge issue that came straight off the back of that, of like, oh, that's what has lost us the game. Generally, that isn't what loses you the game, right? So I would say that I would say from that perspective that people are going to overly have a look at that, and so I think it actually stopped India from probably using in all 3 formats, but in white ball and red ball. I think it actually stopped India from making the best out of what they have, which is, if you have such an incredible depth, you should be being flexible with it. What else we got here? Would it make more sense to have Gill at 5 and 6 and Rohit up top? No. Is scoring quicker the solution to tackle a pink ball? If yes, can Rohit and Pant be successful in the next session against Stark? Generally, it's just getting the ball soft. Now, attacking the ball can definitely help. But if you look at the history of pink ball games, and what do they average? 7, 8 runs less than other test matches? I would say that is not really the case at all. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, I would say that you're making it maybe more dangerous if you go in that direction. Bennett says, Gill shuffling across and missing to be caught plumb in front is now his obvious weakness. Look, I think he just has a general problem with the ball coming back into him. Every batter has a weakness, you know. I mean, Jaiswal has a weakness when the ball's moving away outside off stump, right? Like, every batter has a weakness, and it's how they handle it. Today, he missed a half volley, mate. It wasn't... he missed a half volley on off stump that he would normally hit 99 times out of 100, right? And that's why he played the shot that he did. Probably shouldn't have been playing it across the line. Probably should have been trying to play it straighter. But I think it was David Warner said on commentary he'd faced 2 balls in the last 20 minutes. Generally, when you make a mistake. The reason why bowling is difficult is because his round arm action may be tough to pick from the hand. Well, it's not about it being tough to pick from the hand, mate. It's he's bowling seam up wobble balls. You can't pick those from the hand. You can't pick a wobble ball from the hand. No one in world cricket can. No one in world cricket, when the ball is coming down to them as a wobble ball, can tell you what's going to happen next. That's exactly the same as everyone else. Just seeing if there's anything else here that's coming through. Let's have a look. Good to Great says, I feel India should be happy if they get past 225 here. What is interesting is, for me, is that next 10 to 15 overs, because if Australia get 2 more wickets, even if India bat well, they're not going to put many runs on the board, right? If they don't get a couple of wickets here and the ball does go flat, it means India should be facing the old ball under lights, which allows them to get a few more runs and cash in. So there's big variability based on what is about to happen next. Mr. Wall says, what if batting first is actually a hidden masterstroke, since India gets about in the 3rd innings where their number 3 turns into prime line? I love the idea of allowing Shubman Gill to bat in the innings that he likes the best. That's a good one. Look, Shubman Gill looked really good today. If I'm an Indian, I was watching him thinking, I know he plays Stark well, so there's an element of Stark making him look better. But I was watching him thinking, wow, he's moving so beautifully, so early into position. He really looked good. Why is Australia the only country to play pink balls the most often? So Australia tried them in the 90s. Not pink balls, but were yellow and orange back then. There's always been a feeling that, and Australia was also the first country, genius, to go into day-night limited overs games, right? So there's always been a feeling that cricket is played at the wrong time in Australia and that it should be played at night. So I think that's a big part of it. We also don't get the dew. So in Asia, I think pink ball tests should definitely happen everywhere. But I think in Asia, there's always a bit of worry in certain grounds about the dew, and the dew would ruin a test match. So you have to be careful where you do it. If you look at somewhere like England, it gets quite cold at night, right? Like even in the summer, there's an element of that, and so it probably makes more sense to play them in the daytime in England. So it depends on the country and the time zone and everything else. It realistically, outside of Perth, it would not surprise me if one day in the future the majority of test matches in Australia are day-night test matches, if they can continue to fix the pink ball and everything else. Like, I think that's a part of it, because that is when people watch. It brings the game into peak, and that should be happening in more places in the world. But there are other issues around the world that cause problems, and so at the moment we're sort of caught between these 2 different worlds. But you can double your revenue by having a day-night game in Test match cricket. Because of the advertising. Australia was the first one to really get involved with that, but there are other things that stop some of those countries from doing it. It started to drizzle now, so no more swing for the bowlers. Well, it wasn't swinging much anyway. I don't think we saw any swing, did we, Suhan? So, yeah. That could help the ball get a little bit softer quicker. But yeah, there wasn't really any swing. There was a little bit of swing early on for start, but that was about it. They're not even swing bowlers, the guys. Meme says, what bowling plan do you think would be effective against Rohit and Rishabh? Look, I don't think they need to. If the wicket is assisting them, just try and keep the ball up. The only thing I would say is be prepared to go for a few more extra runs. Maybe put your mid-off and mid-on back a little bit further for the pace bowlers. I've got no issues. I don't think they need to do anything, out of control. Chaitanya says, can you please increase the volume in the next stream? So I've had about 150 messages here, man. You're the first one to mention the volume. I can't talk much louder because it's early morning and my family's asleep. The volume is up at the normal levels, and no one else has complained. So I think it's fine, So as shares, is the pink ball seem more difficult to see compared to the red or white one? Make it difficult to judge? Yes, but remember that the vast majority of deliveries are wobble ball, and so it doesn't really matter. But yes, the way that they're sort of, this is what I've been told. The ball kind of glows a little bit, the pink ball, and so it makes the ball easier to see. If you've ever played cricket with a white ball, a red ball, or a pink ball, I find the pink ball the easiest to see. Sometimes in bright sunlight, maybe less so. The red ball comes back into its own. But the pink ball is really, really easy to see. But it does create a sort of a weird glow. And what the batters say is that the black seam doesn't stand out in the same way that it does on the white ball. But it doesn't matter anymore because 98% of the balls you face in Test cricket from a seam bowler are a wobble ball. Anyway, like, you know, maybe that 98% is too high, but like 85%. So there really aren't that many other options that you're getting anyway. That's it for me. Players are back out on the field. I'll see you at the end of the day's play. This has been the Morning Glory. We try and do these every lunch break of dinner break, whatever break this one is called. We try and do it all the way through. As I said before, please hit up our sponsors as well. Best of Cricket. .substack.com. Go over and subscribe there. And also hit Wicket. I'm going to play you a hit Wicket ad right now. I'll see you later. And that is why Nasser Hussain decided to bowl first at the Gabba. And this all, of course, reminds me of Hit Wicket, which is a mobile cricket strategy game that is all about making those tough decisions. Who do you want to send in as an opener when the asking rate is climbing? Do you go for the big hitter or the steady accumulator? Me, I like to throw in someone a little bit unorthodox. A bit of a wild card like the general. That keeps the opposition guessing. And what about the bowling attack? Do you unleash your express pace early or hold back for the death overs? I'm always tempted to bring on a mystery spinner in the middle overs and just try and break a partnership. Hit Wicket puts you in the captain's chair. You draft the squad and select the batting order and even decide when to use those game-changing abilities. Do you burn your 2x ability to chase down a big total or save it for a critical moment later on? It's strategic, it's addictive, and it's more nerve-wracking than facing a show-up actor bouncer. Give it a go. Download Hit Wicket and see if you've got the tactical nous to win.